Hey, what's up, everyone? Dave here. Welcome to episode 66 of the Pocket Mastermind podcast. On today's episode, I am welcoming Jaryd Krause back to Pocket Mastermind. We had such a great conversation last time Jaryd was on. We decided to do a return, and this time we're talking really wide-ranging from all sorts, from entrepreneurship to the mindset, psychology, goal setting, achievement, all sorts of stuff. Really interesting conversation, and I hope you get an awful lot out of this. I think there's something for pretty much everyone within this conversation if you're interested in subjects like personal development and moving yourself forward and that kind of stuff. So if you do enjoy it, remember, please leave us a review, share it with your friends, subscribe so you get notified about future episodes. All of this really helps us to reach more people. So with that, let's get on with the show. Have you ever questioned why it is that some people seem to have everything they could ever wish for? Health, wealth, love and happiness, but others seem to lack all of these things. Why is it that a small minority manage to achieve greatness, but the vast majority fail to reach even beyond mediocrity? What are this small minority doing differently to everybody else? It can't just be down to circumstance. Billionaires rise out of poverty. Those questions have been in my head my whole life, and a couple of years ago I decided to stop wondering and start searching for the answers so that I could help more people achieve greatness in their own lives. So join me and follow along as I uncover the secrets of the minority that the majority aren't taught, so that you can apply them to your own life to achieve your own greatness and live the life you want and deserve. My name is David Bell, and welcome to Pocket Mastermind. Jaryd, welcome back to Pocket Mastermind. How's it going?
Really good. Thank you so much for having me back, David. I've thoroughly enjoyed our time last time we had a chat, which is, we think we worked out about 6 months ago. And
it's been a while.
But I'm so grateful that I've been invited back. We had a great chat, so I'm looking forward to another one.
Yeah, always welcome. I think, we were just talking just now before we started recording, and, everything that's going on globally at the moment, having conversations, talking about different opportunities, but as for how do people find income and employment in the current circumstance, because we're all aware that many businesses may not survive. They're already not surviving, and many more may not survive, and traditional opportunities, roles that people have been doing for quite a long time may not be available or be very competitive, and to look outside the box and kind of go back to maybe a more entrepreneurial or freelance type approach that historically humans have done, and still you look in like more developing countries, people are far more versatile and entrepreneurial in those, because it's a means to an end and needs must. But we've kind of got very used to having that safe employment within kind of like the Western world, and maybe it's maybe this is the catalyst for us to start thinking a bit differently.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit of a wake-up call. I mean, I also heard, I forget who said it, it could have been Jeff Bezos or somebody who's very, very big. Might even be Jack Ma, who's the founder of Alibaba, but talking about, in the future, most of us won't have like a typical type blue collar career job, blue or white collar career job. Most of us will be freelancers working for ourselves anyway, which I think will be interesting. But for those of us who we're out of a job, it can be a scary thing, and it's not like you can just, most people's default is like, I'm just going to become an Uber driver.
But even that's not really an opportunity right now.
That's right.
In the UK, right? No one's traveling around. You can't just jump.
No,
even that's screwed up.
unless you become accredited, COVID safe Uber Eats driver. I'm not sure if you have Uber Eats where you are, or these other sort of
Deliveroo.
Deliveroo. Yeah. So the thing, I think one good thing for most of us to understand is that it's not something has been removed from society and there's a big gap, because what we lose, we can make up in other areas. Like when there's so many jobs that we can't do, that means there's so many other jobs that need to be fulfilled as well. And it's kind of like looking at like, how can you think about like, okay, cool, there's more people are going to need food because all the food delivery service trucks are going to be swamped. So I need to fulfill this need that may not be or really needs to be fulfilled. So I think if we can become creative around that, and I mean, as you said, like before we hit the record button, a lot of people are turning to be an entrepreneur. And if you learn, say how to, create a website at school, and somebody else doesn't know how to create a website, like somebody who's owned a business for 30 years, they've never really used the internet, they're going to need a website, and you can freelance that type thing. And
I think the point you just made there is really important, that I think when challenges come along, we tend to have a tendency to look at what's lost, what's gone, what's been taken away, and we tend to default to a kind of a place of pain and lack. And then we look around and see, through the previous nearly 12 months now, some people have kind of lost absolutely everything, and some of that's completely out of control, and some have gained and had the best years of their lives. For every person, I would probably say, in my own personal world, I've probably heard of more people talking about how 2020 was the best year they'd ever had in business ever, but more than I heard of, directly of people that had terrible years. Now, obviously, that's limited to my own, where circle exactly, and the people that I tend to listen to and follow around on social media. But it just illustrates that even though the overriding narrative is 2020 was the worst year ever, and leading up to the end of the year, there was a definite good riddance to 2020, as if a light switch was going to happen on midnight December 31st and it was all going to be better. Like that was never going to happen. But I think being able to not get overrun by the loss, and being able to look, like you just said, like the opportunity. Okay, but that thing's gone away, but what fills its place? There's never any voids in the world. That something always fills the gap.
Yeah, it's hard as well, because you're in a state of shock. Most people, you have two ways that you can go when you're in a state of shock of something bad happening, like you losing your job, or becoming ill, or things change massively for you. You can either react, or you can respond. Most people react. And reaction is like an emotional response. But like a well thought out response can be where you go, oh, hang on a second, I'm going to respond to this in a way that I can benefit from it. Like the actual obstacle, like the pain is actually helping me see more clearly that I need to do something different. And it's so hard to have that level of resilience. Like I talk about mindset a lot, that it's easy to have a positive mindset and to be good and happy and positive when things are good.
Yeah.
But it's really hard when things are really, really hard. Like we've all faced that, like when we've just like, things are really shit, but when you can really stay grounded and centered and not be too emotional about it. And I guess that's where a lot of these people that have got some level of emotional intelligence can start to can deal with some of these changes a lot easier than other people that are highly emotional or highly strung that don't know much about emotional intelligence, I guess.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's, from a personal perspective, it's something that I've had to work on over the years, because if I go back to my younger self, man, it didn't take a great deal to piss me off or to, get on top of me. And I went through kind of I don't even know, I went through a period of depression. I don't even know when it started, right? You just kind of incremental. And then one day you think, man, I'm really fucking miserable. And, you kind of then you're faced with a choice. You either let go of that, which, for many people, it can become almost like a comfort blanket. It's a safe place to be in that self-pity and down, or you have to take responsibility and step up and go, right, okay, now it's on me, which can be scary. But I think if you can start to do that and then practice that responsibility and knowing that you have the ability to control how you think and how you feel, and just practice that and accept that you're not gonna wake up one day and suddenly you're Mr. Emotional Intelligence or Miss Emotional Intelligence. You're going to fail over and over again, but the more you practice, the stronger you get at it. It means that when more challenging times do come along, initially you might get that old learned response of, oh shit, but if you can create that space, then you can start to actually think clearly, as you were just describing.
Yeah, it's something that I talk about with a quote that I heard from, I mentioned on a summit. I was on a summit today, and I forget the person's name again, but Tim Ferriss, one of Tim Ferriss's friends, talks about easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life. And I've wrapped this up in some of the other things that I like to talk about, like compounding and second and third order consequences, that, when it's really easy to wear that comfort blanket, right? What's really hard is to face the pain of like, why is this happening? Step outside of my comfort zone. And the idea of the easy choices, hard life means that if you make, the easy choices, and I'll give you an example as well. Let's go back to, like, just so people can understand with a story. We'll go back to, some of my younger years where I used to, drink a lot and party a lot. And I decided, at a certain time, I need to stop this. I need to have a better life. I need to be healthier. I need to be able to think more clearly. So I decided to stop drinking. And I go to parties to socialize. Otherwise I'd have no life, because all of my friends were still doing this. And so we go to the parties, and a lot of people like, dude, you got to drink, peer pressure. And you know what it's like when you're somebody that drinks a lot at most of the parties, and you're always drunk, and you can be a bit of a fool, and people like to laugh at you, and you're just a bit silly. I was this person.
They rely on you to be the fuel,
the
for
entertainment.
Yeah. Exactly.
So a lot of the pressure would come in, like, oh, dude, what are you doing? And then, belittle you with name calling and stuff like that, just peer pressure type stuff. And, I'm faced with a choice. I've got an easy choice where I can go, yep, cool. I'll just drink just to shut you up, and I'll just drink and end up getting drunk. That easy choice really moves me to a harder life, right? Easy choices, hard life, where the next day I'm going to be hungover on a Sunday. I'm going to be feeling crap. So I'm going to want to eat comfort food, and I'm going to want to watch TV instead of like reading a book and educating myself, and probably going to be like, have a 2-day hangover and be feeling like crap on Monday. Whether I'm working for somebody else or an entrepreneur, I can't think clearly. I can't make the best decisions. So I could even hurt myself. Now, that's the compounding effect. Like, most people think about compounding, that, compounding growth, but compounding can happen negatively as well. Right. So this is where second and third order consequences come in. So a second order consequence of me drinking is that I'm hungover. A third order consequence is me making bad decisions or being clumsy and foggy, and I could possibly hurt myself at work. So there's that thing that happens. And most people don't really think about like how far down the line these certain decisions go.
Yeah.
And the opposite is true. If I have the hard choice, it can make my life so much easier. That if I go, no, this is a really hard choice, but I'm going to decide to say, no, I'm going to not drink, right? And, block out the peer pressure and deal with it. The next day, I'm going to be great. I'm going to wake up in the morning, go for a run or a swim or a surf at the beach, read my book, feel great and fresh on the Monday, and crush out a bunch of work and do really, really good. Now that's compounding growth, right? That's the second and third order consequences that are good. Now, the hard thing is to actually be conscious that you have a decision, that you can actually make a choice. It's really, really, like I suggest and force people, especially if they're in a really low state, and a lot of people can be at this time, is that to try and force yourself to face the hard decisions and make the hard decisions, because even just one small hard decision is going to make your life so much better with that compounding growth and the second and third order consequences.
Yeah, I completely agree. I talked about a very similar concept in the way I look at it is that if it's easy now, it carries with it a future debt, and if it's hard now, it carries with it kind of a future payment. And the great thing with this, there's laws of the universe that you can't overcome, right? And one of those is you can pretty much have anything you want as long as you're willing to pay the price. You can spend all day sat on the sofa, eating ice cream, watching TV. You're free to do that. The results, though, however, is that you're going to have to pay the debt at some point in the future when you're overweight, diabetic, and have major health conditions. That's the debt you're paying back for that small amount of pleasure in at some point previously. Whereas if you do make the hard decision, like you're talking about, like get up and go for a run or cycle or do your exercise or don't procrastinate. Even simple little things like, do you let the dishes pile up in the sink, or do you put the stuff straight in the dishwasher? Yes. Do you know what I mean? If you put it straight in the dishwasher, jobs out of the way. If you pile it up in the sink, all the time while they're piling up, in the back of your brain is using energy saying, I've got to do that job. It's just more stuff that you think you're getting away with now, but you can't ever outrun it. And if you put stuff off, and I've learned this, I used to be a terrible procrastinator. You have to do a lot of crap you really don't like doing, and it takes even longer if you put it off.
That's so good, that explanation. There's two things that I kind of speak to with that, is that I like the idea of that you're paying debt, right? You're paying debt off, because if it goes the opposite way, is like at some way you're either paying interest or you're gaining interest, right? With the good choices or the hard choices, you're gaining interest. With the easy choices, you're having to pay that interest. I like that. I'll really like that analogy. And I think what you said about even the small things with the dishes, that could be really big for somebody. Really, really big. And I think this is what a lot of people, especially at 2021, they start off with this big, scary, audacious goal that they want to achieve this goal. And they do it most years, and they, what is it? They called it New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
And
most of them are dead by January 2nd, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that's right. It's because they've got a thing on a pedestal they want to get, but they haven't built a bridge, or they haven't got a system to be able to get there, right? From where they're at now, to build that bridge or that system or that process, and step by step how to get there. So I suggest people to not set something that's so big where they can't build a bridge. Set something so small that you can build a small little bridge or a small little system. Like, okay, with the dishes, all right, I'm going to make sure that I leave a note on the kitchen counter or on the bench top that just says dishwasher. So every time I go to put a dish there, it reinforces me, oh, okay, I'll put it straight in the dishwasher, rather than just leave it in the sink or on the bench. And that's just a small little thing, right? Just to make sure I have to never, rinse and stack up dishes and put them in the dishwasher later, and have that space taken up, not just in my apartment or room, but in my head as well. It's gone and done. I think that's really important. Most people don't understand how to build the bridge or the system to make sure they hit these small little goals, and start with the small ones, because when you have those big ones and you don't achieve them, what happens? It has a compounding effect, a negative compounding effect on your willpower and your confidence. Because like, oh, I never achieved my goals. So next time you set a goal, even if it's small, you may not be confident in achieving it.
Also, what I see is we tend to have a habit of then almost punishing ourselves for failing. So, dry January is quite a common thing, right? And so many people say, right, I'm going to not drink for January. And then for whatever reason, they have a drink and they go, well, I've had one, I might as well have 20 now. No, you can stop at the one and say, I shouldn't have had the one, and then pick up from where you were. You don't have to make the situation worse. And you see it with, dieting, slip up on one meal, and before you know it, the whole day or the week's gone down the drain, and it becomes harder to come back out of it. I think you've got to try, and if you accept that slip ups will happen, particularly if you've been living a certain way, if you been eating a certain way for a long period of time, or you drink every night, or you smoke or whatever, then you've got to accept that breaking that pattern and that habit isn't going to happen like a light switch. Otherwise you'd have done it before. Right. So, but don't then also punish yourself or comfort yourself by punishing yourself, if that makes sense, by adding to the error that you've already made. Don't make it worse.
Yeah, I agree.
It happens so frequently. The other concept that I heard recently that I thought works quite well for this kind of thing, for goal setting and for maybe creating new behaviors for a new year. We always like to associate it with some kind of point in time. Is a concept around avatars, and we all have slightly different roles and slightly different personalities within our lives. And this concept was really around, if you think about who you want to be. So this really starts with it. And when I talk with clients and people about goal setting, I always try and talk about the starting point of imagine what does your ideal life look like? Because if you can picture that as a starting point, then you can start to work your way backwards. And one of those things is kind of like, well, who's the kind of person that has the life that you want, and who are you now, and where do you need to change? And you can then break that into different avatars. So, are you a tidy person? Are you a punctual person? Are you a fit and active person? Because if that's who needs to be the person that's the person you need to be to have the life that you want. And then you can start to set small habit goals or changes within each of those avatars. Like you're saying, are you a messy person now, but you need to be a tidy person? Well, okay, one step towards being a tidy person is don't let the dishes stack up.
Yeah, I think it's that's so spot on. I really associate what you said as it being an avatar. In this book, it's over here, James Clear, Atomic Habits. I read that. Amazing. And he talks about, obviously it's habits, but it's having an identity. It is like, if you have an identity of you're this person or you're that person, it can really help you and you kind of associate with that identity that I'm this person. It can allow you to be that person. Like, for example, with smoking, a lot of people, they're wanting to quit smoking, right? They want to, stop this bad habit, and they're trying to quit smoking, and they go, oh no, I quit smoking. Right. But in their head, they've told themselves, like, I'm a smoker, but I've quit smoking. But I'm a smoker, so I should still probably smoke. But if you go, all right, I'm going to stop smoking, I'm going to quit smoking, and you tell yourself and associate with the identity of, like, I don't smoke, I'm not a smoker, it's much easier to go, no, I'm not a smoker.
Yeah, I used exactly that. So I used to smoke, and years ago,
Wow.
I haven't smoked cigarettes for a very long time, but then I was,
Congrats.
Thanks. I stopped full-time smoking probably 10 years ago, but I would still have the occasional cigarette when I was drinking. And then to combat that, I thought, I tell you what I'll do is I'll get one of these electronic devices, right? Do you know what all that did was that was a slippery slope. Before I knew it, I was sucking on that thing like it was a dummy, right? Pacifier for people in the States. And I was sucking on this bloody thing. And it became harder to give that up than it was cigarettes, because cigarettes stink. this thing tasted like mint, right?
Yeah.
And I could sit on the sofa and use
Enjoy it.
Whereas, if I was using cigarettes, you'd always go outside. You kind of been ingrained for a long time to do that. So it became harder and harder. And actually using that method, not via James Clear at that time, it was via Sadhguru and his book, Inner Engineering, where it really talks about identity and exactly the same as James does in his book, and associating that, when you do give up cigarettes or alcohol or something else, you've got to change that identity. Are you the ex-smoker, or are you the alternative? And for me, it was more important for me to think of myself as being fit and healthy, or smoking and also another identity is very much around, being in control of my own mind and my own thoughts. And was I going to allow this substance to control me, or am I stronger and more capable of controlling it? And that was kind of the light bulb moment for me. Was I thought, hang on a second, is my will really that weak that I can't beat this nicotine? And so I kind of picked the thing up and threw it in the bin and was done with it. And I'll never ever go near nicotine again in my life. That's been a few years now.
That's great. Good work.
But you've got it. Yeah, it's so powerful. It's very, and I think it's hard to let go of an identity, because you've probably held that identity for many years. In some cases, 30 or 40 years. To feel like you have control to change who you are that quickly and that easily is a hard concept for people to understand, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is for most people to get outside their comfort zone that far. Normally they're happy with small little changes, but the quickest way to change is a big change, I think. Yeah,
I think you've got to you kind of got to rip the plaster, rip the Band-Aid off and go for it. But you've got to, there's a bit of courage in there, I kind of talk about this kind of five or six areas. I guess you could argue six, but there's kind of 5 key areas that we need to kind of address and kind of work on, kind of master. And the first one being fear, right? Because fear, whilst it's quite good, it keeps us alive for the most part, it really stops us from even dreaming about doing other things and being other things. It kind of gets in the way. It's the dream killer. The second one I talk about is pain, because you might get over the fear and then we start doing something, it's a little bit difficult, and then we run back into our shell and give up again, and then this is something I think about because I cycle, right? And it's quite easy to, cycling hurts, right? It never gets easier. You just get fitter, you get faster, and you can go further, but it never gets easier. And it's the same with many physical activities. They never get easy. You kind of do them thinking they're going to get easier, but you're either lifting more weight, or you're just running faster, or cycling faster, or going further, and it still hurts. So it doesn't. You're never going to get away from the pain, and I think you got to embrace that as being the catalyst of change, right? That's it. When it hurts, that's when you're doing something else. If you run away from that pain, like you don't progress forwards. And I think afterwards, you kind of, once you step back from that experience, you think, I should have pushed a bit further. I should have tried harder. I don't think there's anyone ever feels like, I couldn't have done a bit more.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
It's interesting how. Yeah, it's interesting how we operate, isn't it? It really is. I like to, as you can tell, my brain's just ticking over, and just like I'm putting all this stuff through filters, and I'm very careful with what I end up believing and not believing, because I try to make sure whatever I do believe in is serving to me at a certain time. Like I like to change my thought patterns a lot and my belief systems a lot. It's very different to most people.
I'm always looking for new inputs and new ways of trying to assess things, and you do change over time. And the funny thing is as you do change your approach over time, people say, hang on a second, didn't you used to say such and such? And I said, yeah, but I've changed. What I mean? It's like I realize there's a different way. There's a way that I consider to be better than my old way. If I just carried on doing it the old way, I'd carry on getting what I was getting, and that wasn't working for me.
For sure. Actually, like I've started as of late, since us talking in the last time we talked, like even just the last few months, I've started really getting a fair bit out of like proving things wrong. Like especially when we are born, where we just do what mum and dad say and our peers, and we end up buying into, oh, that's the way the world works. Like, oh, dad, how come this is like this? And your dad will explain it's like this because, you know, this is how it is. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. That's just it. Right. And you just put full faith and trust in that. And then mum will tell you a story about how this works. And then you just end up joining all the dots together, and that your reality of like how the world works is all built off everybody else's beliefs.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy to think about?
Yeah.
So
have you ever, on that subject, have you ever seen the waiting room experiment?
No.
It's super powerful. Go and have anyone listening and yourself Google this afterwards, because it's absolutely it's so interesting that basically in a very short synopsis is there's a waiting room of people for a dentist surgery or doctors or something, and they're actors to begin with, right? And so then a test subject comes through the door, and periodically there's a beep sound. And when this beep sounds, everyone in the waiting room stands up for no reason whatsoever. So the new person comes in and sees all these people stand up, and things are a bit odd. After a couple of times, that person starts to stand up with everyone else, because they all seem to know what they're doing, because they stand when this beep happens. And then one by one, the original actors are replaced by new people that have no idea what's going on. They come in, and that one person then becomes the example.
Analyst.
And so before you know it, there's a waiting room full of completely different people that were never there originally, just standing up when the beep happens. And no one's questioning why it's happening.
It's so
society. You know,
it is society, and isn't it scary? I'm so glad that you give that example. Isn't it scary that we do this? And that's why I like to question things so rigorously at the moment. Like, and I'm getting a lot of fun out of it. I was also thinking of writing people have these old wives' tales that they believe in, and superstitions. And I've even toyed with the idea of writing a book called Stupid Stitious, and just highlighting.
I'd love to read.
Yeah, it would be fun. And I've already thought about a few things that I just think are so stupid that people believe because they haven't questioned it. Just like they believe they need to stand up when they have a beat because they haven't questioned it, and you can just be a lemming because you haven't decided to go, hang on, is this is the right way to operate my life? I think it's really important for us to start to form our own belief systems, not fully based off like everybody else's of the way the world works. I'll give you an example of one if you like. I had a person in my mastermind a couple of weeks ago say, I tried to get this done. I tried to hire somebody to do this job and for my business, and it just wasn't done very well, wasn't done right. And he said to me, you need to, or he said to all of us in the mastermind, he's like, it's like if you want a job done right, you've got to do it yourself. And I'm like, and most people were like, yeah, that's just, bloody oath. Of course.
If that were true, all businesses would consist of one person, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. And so I said, and this just came to me, and I'd never thought about questioning this, but it just came, and he said it, and then I'm like, no. And something happened inside me. I go, no, I said to him, no. And this is in front of everybody else in the mastermind. I was like, no, I don't believe that. And let me explain why. And my explanation goes that if you believe that if you want something done right, you've got to do it yourself, that's ridiculous, because if you think something's, if you think your way of doing it is the only right way, then, you're blocking yourself off to hiring somebody that could be better at you at that job and get that job done better than it could even be done at all.
So true. And also, the irony is that he's in a mastermind situation in which the idea is pooling of brain powers and intelligence, right, to come up with solutions to challenges that's greater than the sum of the parts. That's the whole point of working together. So clearly, and not in the back of his mind, he doesn't believe that's 100% true. Otherwise, he wouldn't be joining part of the group.
Yeah, well, and not to beat down on this guy, he's a beautiful man. Spoke to him today, and he loves challenging these beliefs, and was, a lot of us got a lot out of it. But I just think it's great for us to kind of think about these things. And I've wrote a list of things called entrepreneurial suckisms. Like one of my mentors last year was like, you really are an entrepreneur, Jaryd, but you've got this energy around some of the things that happen in the entrepreneurial space that you just don't agree with. She said you should write them out and get them off your chest. And I've started writing out a bunch of them, and just like some of the things like, entrepreneurship is lonely, which is just a stupid, false thing.
If you want it to be, it can be.
Yeah. And there's so many of them. It's you could write seriously a Bible of them, entrepreneurial suckisms, or just even stupid stitches. I just urge people to really think about, is this the right way to think, or is this the right belief system that's serving me, yes or no? And you can go so deep in different factors and areas.
A great example of one of those is something I grew up hearing in the UK is, it's too cold to snow. Too cold to snow. We are not Norway, right? I've seen it. I've seen it snow at -40, and we've never got close to there. So I don't buy that at all.
It's too cold to snow. Wow.
I think it's because there's some kind of myth that it feels like it warms up because the humidity increases when it snows, rather than it being actually warmer. So I was like, it's always blew my mind. I grew up hearing that, and you kind of go, it's too cold to snow. And then one day I thought, how is that possible? The coldest place on earth are covered in snow.
Yeah, it's funny. But you'd be so surprised about how many of those things that either your mum told you the way that thing is, or your dad, or your siblings, or your peers at school, or your teacher, or your coach at soccer, or football where you are. And like, it's, as a child, you just go, they know more than me. They know what's right.
Exactly.
And you can see this happen. You can see this happen in families where the parents aren't as, say, affluent as some other parts of the world, where they believe this certain belief pattern that could be very destructive to kids, and they end up believing that as well. It's just like, well, that's just the way the world works, and the whole world is against you, and you need to toughen up and have a glass of cement for brekkie every morning. And or like, even just the things like we're taught in fitness, like you need to just train every single day and train as much as you can. And like, it's really actually killing people now that people are overtraining, because they don't understand that part of this is you need rest and recovery. I know for me,
I've been with you. Like I ran myself into the ground, kind of going to the gym twice a day and doing stupid things. Like you just it catches up with you in the end. You suddenly, particularly as you start to get older as well, you need more rest and recovery than you did when you're 20. You can probably get away with it when you're 18, 19, 20, but getting in your 40s and late 30s is not going to happen. Like, you might feel like you can still do the same stuff, and you might actually be able to perform okay, but it's going to hurt for longer, that's for sure.
When you're 20, it's like sleep is so boring. When you hit 30, in your 30s, you're like, sleep is probably what I look forward to so much.
and ironically becomes harder to come by. It's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
was
If you
20, I could sleep
depends on
12
how you
hours a
set your
day.
life up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's I can never get the same amount of sleep as I used to when I was younger, and I
Mm,
really want to be honest. But, running
mm,
down the clock, don't want to spend half of my life asleep. That's for sure.
mm.
I think, as we
Yeah.
talk about this, it's important to, for anyone listening now, it's like, I can't really stress enough how important it is to read and to search for information and new ways of looking at things, and even from perspectives that you might think that you disagree with now, because I think one of the dangers we fall into is kind of trying to find information that really supports what we already believe, and from people that we already validate in our own mind, or our peer group validate in our own mind as being the good guys or whatever. But I think we have quite a large division in our societies, and growing now. Look at what happened in the States over the last week. The
Yes.
division is not getting narrower, and the more we throw rocks at the people that do what we perceive to be wrong, rather than listen, the greater that divide is going to go, right? Sure, people shouldn't go storming into buildings and riots and all the rest of it, but that's a symptom of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think the more that we can open our own minds and read and learn and seek to see different opinions and different ways of thinking, the more inclusive we're likely to be. I think the fact that we're so in our own little rooms, in our houses, watching Netflix and social media with the people that we want to follow, is creating that division so much more.
It's what actually happens when we are on any form of media that's connected to the internet is it, unfortunately, algorithms are set in a certain way that it'll give us more of what we're already searching for. For example, if there's a movement, or like, just it doesn't even have to be a terrible thing that's happening in society right now, but it could be, if you start Googling, what's vegan and what isn't vegan, that's going to get picked up on Google, and then you go to YouTube and a lot more like how to become a vegan in X amount of days or whatever it is. And then, those things can start to open up into things on Facebook, and then the algorithms just lean heavily into that thing, and you can become so entrenched and end up becoming this person that becomes a vegan activist, and then it can be destructive. Like if you're too far down one route, like for example, even being a vegan, it's not good for every single human person, because we all have different bodies and we all need different types of energy and different types of nutrition. And I mean, we could go down this rabbit hole, but the point is that, like it's very, very hard with how we consume our media. You look at, like you said, Netflix, like you have related TV shows or movies that, have a percentage chance of it being relevant to what you've previously watched. And it can end up putting you down this, you becoming a flat earther or a round earther, like it's.
I think we have free choice, and we really don't. Like, there's no such thing as this free choice. We've got to be very conscious of how every choice that we make now has already been influenced, and how it will then be used to influence future choices that we make.
I think the only thing we do have is choice, and free choice. But the hard thing is that it's slowly, if we don't understand that it's getting taken away from us by us having these certain conversations and us being conscious that that's the way algorithms are set to work, then we can feel like we don't have a choice. Whereas I think the only thing we control, like if you look at the serenity prayer and stuff, is that we can only really control what happens in here. Sometimes we can't even control what happens within our body. right? Like an injury or, some certain things. I'm very aware that like I could start researching something and then it could be very heavily persuade me to push me down a route where I could become an activist.
Yes.
Or then start rioting against a certain left wing versus right wing. And most people don't go, oh, well, hang on. Like, I'm lucky I've got people in my life. Like when I went full vegan, all right, I didn't become an activist or anything, but like this is 5 years ago when I went full vegan. A lot of people are questioning me and like pushing me as like, hang on, have you researched the other side? And then they'd make me go away and research, what am I missing that not from my diet and stuff like that. And I think if you have those people around you, it can really help. And having these conversations of like the world is pushing you down a certain route, and you can decide to go or not. And
I think the danger sign is kind of when you start to associate as some kind of tribe in any form whatsoever, right? So if I'm left, I'm right, or instantly it becomes so much more us and them, like that.
Yes,
the way we are. You see this particularly in political spectrums, right? The left feel like they're on some kind of high ground, and they're looking down on the right as being these Neanderthal thugs, and the people on the right look down on everybody else as some kind of second-rate human being that they have the right to control. And all you're doing is you both, regardless of which side you're on, you're doing the same thing. Right? You're creating you're creating division, and you're not listening, and it's not going to solve any problems. There's no moral high ground to be gained from being on one side or the other. At the end of the day, dictatorships end up on the extremes on whether you're left or right. You can't put it on one side or the other. And I think if you start to realize that you're thinking, well, there's that group and this group, probably time to start looking at other perspectives. That's the way I try and look at things.
I think it's great. I think the great word that I heard you say is you're not listening. Like listening and having empathy for either side. Like just listen to what they're saying. And then this is what I like to do in business. It's like I can see an opportunity happen. I can see that I can grow massively, and that they can grow massively if we link up together and we can both win. But instead of me coming in going like, oh, we should do this, and me acting on my behalf and taking, first as I stop and I ask and I go, if I was to help you, what will be a knockout of the park? What will be an absolute home run? And how could I help you have a home run? And if I can go work out, okay, they want this, which is going to be a home run. How can I give that to them and still help myself in my business? And we both have a home run. Now, I'm not political I don't know anything about what's going on in America because I don't watch the TV. I don't consume that type of media. So I can't speak to it, but I have the sense that even if you're in a fight with your best friend, is just stop and listen to them and go, okay, like what's happening with you. And then you can empathize and sympathize with them. And then you can tell them your story, and then you can bond and connect, and you can both end up winning and being in a great relationship.
It's fundamental. It's fundamental to every form of relationship. In the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the principles within that, one of the habits is seek first to understand and then be understood. Because of, if 2 people are coming at it trying to broadcast, neither are going to receive, and you're not going to move forward. So all you do is create further and further tension and division. It doesn't work. Doesn't work at all. Just before we wrap up, I realized that I kind of talked about the 5 things and got to number 2 and then kind of dropped it. So for anyone listening,
let's keep going with that.
The third thing I think that we need to master is desire, and that kind of terminology really comes from. So what number 1 was fear. Number 2 was pain.
Number 2 was pain. Fear, pain, and desire.
And number 3 is desire, and that kind of really the terminology really comes from Napoleon Hill, and desire is present all of the time, right? And if you can channel it it either channeled or unchanneled, it's the most powerful force that there is, because it's our desire that ends up getting us everything that we get. So if it's controlled and focused, you end up like, Jeff Bezos or someone, you've got a very specific direction, and everything is focused towards that, and distractions are blocked out. And I think many people struggled with the concept that the world is organized in some way, because most people are not organized, right? The Harvard study that shows that, was it 4% of people have goals written down, and because we tend to think that most people are like us, if our life is kind of quite accidental, we just kind of assume that everything in the world is quite accidental and that no one can have an order or a plan. But thankfully that's not the case, because there is some kind of order.
That's how the world runs.
Yeah, exactly. But the challenge is, if you don't kind of have those goals and the plans, then your desire in any given moment will take you for whatever's shiniest at that point. It might be the TV, it might be ice cream, it might be whatever it is. If you don't have those goals to focus in on that powerful force, it's just going to take you into any direction. And that's something you've got to be hyper aware of.
I like that. You can have, short flame desires of like, all right, I need food, ice cream, sex, whatever it is. Just get a quick hit of just, it's probably more of a lust, really, isn't it? Like I've got a lust for food. I've got a lust, wanderlust to go away and travel. And it's really, really is a lust. It's not a desire at all, is it? It's like a long-term, a desire is a long-term thing, really, isn't it? Oh, yeah, probably. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I would say in a traditional sense. And I think, but being able to have, if you have that, then when those short-term lusts or desires or whatever that you want to call them
can be blocked out.
Come along, you can see them and go, no, it doesn't fit with the long-term plan. If there is no long-term plan, if you go after every single thing that comes your way every single day, and each day becomes an accident, it's a bit like a candle flame just like flickering around wherever the wind takes it, and the chances of luck striking in that approach are probably quite low. So for me, I think that's one of the important things. The fourth one is faith, and faith in your ability to be able to do what you want to do. So if you have you get over your fear and you set a dream, and you can push through the pain because you've got this specific desire that you're chasing after. Well, the desire's all good, but it's only hope if you don't believe that you can do it. And it's that, I think, the belief that you can do it gets you through the setbacks, because every time you get knocked back, if you still believe that there's a way, it might not be the way you're trying, you'll find another way. If you don't believe, you'll think that way you tried was the way, and you give up. And I think it's important to have that faith angle, that's the fuel towards you achieving that desire. Yeah,
for sure.
And then the last one is gratitude. I think for me, I found, like, when I was down and depressed, one of the things I learned from Viktor Frankl, Man's Search of Meaning, was around
what a book.
Joy. Oh, amazing. What a great book. But joy is not connected to circumstance and environment. You have control over that, and one of the greatest weapons you've kind of got to regain happiness and joy, I found, is gratitude, because you can only feel one emotion at any one time. So if you feel down and lost and beaten and lack, if you can pick one thing and really, really focus on how grateful you are for that, it's impossible to feel anything other than happy whilst being grateful for something. And that can be the catalyst to turn stuff around. And also, if you live in this area, this world of lack, and the law of attraction talks about this over and over again. If you live in a place of lack and scarcity, then you're not grateful. Then how on earth are you ever going to attract anything else to you? Because you're miserable all the time. Like, you're not going to be making proactive decisions. There's so much doesn't happen because of this lack feeling.
Yeah, gratitude is the best attitude.
It rhymes for a reason.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I used to
carry on.
Sorry. I used to wake up every morning and do different portions of that as a morning routine. Like I used to visualize my perfect life, and that would always change almost every single morning. And that would create that desire that I need, which would give me commitment and would allow me to have faith in what I was doing and faith that I was actually going to achieve that vision. And also gratitudes. Like I ensured that I listed out 3 things that I was grateful for, and they weren't like massive things. It could be something so small, like grateful that I have lungs and I can breathe, grateful that I, get to see the sun most days, grateful that like all these different things. And I experiment, like always have experimented with these different things and used to write them down, and I used to visualize them. And you can make it into a daily practice until like you start to do it quite regularly without you needing prompts. Like I remember I started doing that more than like 7 years ago, like gratitudes for like more than maybe even 8 years ago. And I went away on a trip. I went away for about 1.5 years. I was living at my parents' before I left. And I would do like when mum and dad were having dinner and I was having dinner, I'd be like, what's the, what are you grateful for today? Like I'd sort of prompt it. And we did it, like I only did it like a couple of weeks or a month before I left. Came home, had dinner with everybody at home, and they're all started this, like they just all went around the table and they're all like, oh, this is what I'm grateful for. And it was like the whole family. I was just like, fuck, this is ridiculous. Like this is, imagine teaching your kids that at, 2 or 3 when they first, at dinner table. Like that is a way to start teaching your kids some pretty cool things.
Yeah, definitely. I think ingrain that thought process, and I think you grow up as a happier, more fulfilled, joyful person, and great things tend to happen to those people that seem to bounce through life smiling and joking, and people are magnetized to them. So there's definitely something in there. I'm conscious of the time, and I know it's pretty getting late over where you are now. My days have started and yours are coming to an end. But Jaryd, thank you very much for a really interesting conversation. I hope everyone listening has got as much out of this as I have.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. I got a lot just learning from you as well. Like it's been great, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. So thank you again,
mate. Thank you very much, and hopefully we do it again before too long. And hopefully, when we do that, maybe the world will be a little bit more normal again.
Maybe we could do it in person. Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, nice one. Cool. Cheers, Jaryd.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this conversation. If you enjoyed it and you'd like to hear more similar episodes, head over to pocketmastermind.com, where you'll also find the links mentioned in this conversation. And if you haven't done so already, please leave us a review. It will really help us to get our message out and let more people know about these episodes. So leave us a review, leave us a rating, hit the subscribe button, and please share with your friends. Until next time, thank you again for listening.